Welcome to Deb's Truth Journey. If this is your first time stopping by our channel, we encourage you to click the subscribe button and become a truth seeker with us. Now, let's get into today's video, Black by Purpose. Race is the child of racism, not the father. Racism spawned race, not the other way around. Race was invented by European naturalists and anthropologists, particularly a man named Carl Linnaeus in 1735, which we know is at the height of the slave trade. He categorized people into four groups based on the continents that they knew of: America, European, Asian, and Africa. And the way he described them was, of course, was very favorably to the Europeans and not so favorably to the African, Asians, and Americans. When purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. Miles Monroe, this is a quote from Miles Monroe, and it's so important to understand purpose because it's the gateway to truth. When you learn the purpose of something, people can't sell you can't do the banana in their tailpipe okie doke on you when you know the purpose of something. We're going to talk about the purpose of black skin, and there are three keys to true understanding our different skin colors. That's the sun, DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, and melanin. Those are three key things you're going to know as to why we all look the way we look. There are 7 types of solar radiation that come from the sun: radio, microwave, infrared, visible light, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma rays. These are the 7 types of solar radiation that comes from the sun, and they're called the electromagnetic spectrum. Of these 7, only 3 of them actually reaches the earth, and they come in the form of sunlight. That's ultraviolet, visible light, and infrared. Okay? The sunlight encompasses the 3. So we can see the visible light and we can feel the infrared as heat. The third form of sunlight is ultraviolet light, and that's the one we want to focus on. There are 3 types of UV rays: UVA, UVB, and UVC. Now, the UVC, none of the UVC reaches the earth. We're protected from those rays by the ozone layer. If that reached the earth, it would kill all life form. Now, of the A and B, 95% of UVA reaches the earth. Only 5% of UVB rays reach the earth, and that 5% is needed to help the body produce vitamin D. All living things are made up of matter. All living things need energy. Energy is converted from one form to another. And where does energy come from? The sun. All living things need the sun, needs energy from the sun. Now, what is a living organism? A living organism is an individual form of life such as bacterium, fungus, plant, or animals that is capable of growing and reproducing organisms. Organisms are composed of 1 or more cells. So living organism could be something you see on a petri dish in a microscope, all the way up to human life. Those are living organisms. What is DNA? DNA, which stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA determines the structure and outward appearance of the body, the inward operation and protections, as well as what the body genetically passes on to subsequent generations. Now, all living organisms have DNA. So even those little bacterium on things on the petri dish, if they can reproduce, the reproducing part of it is due to the DNA. So all those sources have deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA is the genetic information inside the cells of the body that helps make people who they are. I looked this up the other day and found that we have 37 trillion cells in our body. Cells get their instructions on what to do from the DNA. DNA acts sort of like a computer, like the CPU in a computer, directing all parts of the whole system. Now, this was pretty interesting too, how to understand how a cell is these 37 trillion cells in our body. What's in a cell? In the cell, there's a nucleus, which contains chromosome. A chromosome is tightly wound DNA. It's tightly wound into chromosome form so that you can get a lot of them in a small area. Because think of how big a cell is. So you got all these chromosomes and this DNA wound up into a teeny, weeny cell. Well, in the DNA are our genes. So you have a cell. In the cell is a nucleus. In the nucleus, there are chromosomes. In the chromosomes are DNA. And in the DNA are our genes. I found that really interesting for a person who's not really into science. Me. Okay, moving along. Now, DNA has a kryptonite. DNA has a kryptonite called UV rays of the sun. The UV rays of the sun can really damage the DNA. They can get through the skin, go in there, pierce that cell, and if they get to the nucleus, they get to the DNA because they can change the coding. Maybe that coding send that protein A to the kidney. DNA damage could cause it to misquote, and it'll send that receptor A to somewhere else, or it'll give the ability to receive that receptor, that protein to somewhere else. Now you have the kidney that does not have protein A, which is it needs to survive. So you have kidney issues over here. And where the protein did go, it could cause issues over there. But oftentimes it'll do something to reduce the effect of that protein. So the protein may still go to the kidney, but it doesn't have all the ingredients that it should have to nourish the kidney. And that's called a mutation. That's called a mutation when the DNA damage comes in and it changes the coding in the DNA. So that's why it's necessary to protect the DNA. DNA gets out of whack. I personally believe that if our DNA never experienced any mutations, we would have lived forever. That's just me. Side note, that's just me. Now let's get back onto what the science books are saying. UV damage to DNA. Damage to DNA causes mutations which stop the DNA functioning properly. Our body experiences a lot of mutations. Some of them are just in appearances. Some of them affect us physically, mentally. They could cause real harm. Sickle cell is a mutation, is a result of a mutation. Tay-Sachs disease is the result of a mutation. Something happened in the coding and things didn't go as they should, and that was the result of them. So there are a lot of different things that can affect that. So if UV rays are that harmful, what is the answer to protecting living organisms from UV rays? Well, one source describes it as a substance that is widely disseminated in the universe and in all living beings, and whose main characteristic is that it is capable of absorbing visible and invisible light and dissipating the energy absorbed by disassociating the water molecule, such as chlorophyll in plants. Sounds like photosynthesis to me. Now, this substance is a polymer called melanin. Melanin is a ubiquitous biological pigment found in bacteria, fungi, plants, animals, and interstellar space. It has a diverse range of ecological and biochemical described functions, including display, evasion, photoprotection, detoxification, and metal scavenging. Now, when I read this, the first thing came to mind is, what is ubiquitous? Well, the dictionary describes ubiquitous as existing or being everywhere at once, omnipresent. Omnipresent brings one thought to mind when I hear that word, and that's a description of the Heavenly Father as omnipresent. So there's something ethereal about this polymer, melanin. But according to the National Geographic, this is what the first man looked like with his melanin super shield. I'm going to stop right here. And on part 2, when we come back for part 2, we're going to talk more about melanin and what mutations cause the change in the super shield. I love you. I appreciate you, and in all your decisions, decide to win. And I'll see you on the next leg of Deb's Truth Journey. Bye.